Hi everybody, Nancy Boisvert here with AGAPI and NEXsteps, and today I wanted to talk about seniors housing. Now before you click off this video, I know that does not sound like the most exciting video, but it is still a very important dialogue that we have to have. As I've mentioned in some of my other videos, we have a real issue with providing safe, secure housing for our seniors as we age and require more and more supports. We have, first of all, not enough housing for our seniors, and secondly, even if we did have all of the housing, we don't have enough support staff to help provide the supports required in those housing environments. So one of the things that I assist people with when I am consulting with them is we try to figure out what are the housing options that exist, what is best in their individual circumstances, and what options are available within their means. So we do have a few different options. The first one is termed aging in place. So I know that that's a very broad spectrum, and a lot of these senior housing facilities do call themselves an age in place. And I suspect that what they're intending is that you can move in there when you are living in independent living, and then you can go into their supported living program, and eventually if you do need it, you can go into their long-term care. What I refer to when I talk about age in place is, does the individual have the opportunity, do they have the ability to age in their own home, whether it's a home that they own, whether it's a home that they rent? Can they safely be housed in their existing environment, and can they afford to stay in that existing environment and receive the supports that they need at that time, and also projecting forward if their care needs are anticipated to change or if they do change? So one of the things that has to be considered if you're looking at aging in place is your income and expenses, and see how that factors in. The bigger issue is about the safety and security of the home. As we age, our mobility naturally decreases. Now I know that there are those people who are running triathlons when they're 100 years old, but for the most of us, we move a little bit slower in the morning, and it takes a little bit more effort to maybe get up and down stairs or things like that. So we have to take a look at the existing environment. And is it something that would be safe for the senior to stay in? What are the barriers within there? Is there a walk-in shower for them? Because again, we don't want people to fall. We don't want them to try to step into a tub, especially if they're on their own, if there might be a fall risk there. So we have to look at that. What about barriers if they do require a walker or a wheelchair in their home environment? Are there easy transitions for the flooring? Can the place be retrofitted with the safety guards? Things like that. Is it in a community where there are supports available? And then can the individual afford to bring in support, a care aid if it's required? We're fortunate enough that we do have some supports through provincial coffers. They will provide a certain level of home care, but perhaps you need more than that. Maybe you need somebody to come in on a daily basis. So if your province only supports somebody to come in a couple of times a week, can you afford to bring somebody in longer? What about your network of friends and family? Can they come in? Can they support you? Can they do your grocery shopping, prepare meals for you, come and visit, keep you socialized, get you to appointments, things like that? So that would be the first level. If you are independent and you're able to age in place, that really is what most people do desire. Then the option is, if you don't want to be troubled with maintaining a house, for instance, you might want to consider what they call independent living. So these are facilities that are run by, owned by, and managed by corporations and provinces that provide housing in an independent setting for seniors. You can come and go as you please. Rental options are different. Some of them are geared towards income in a subsidized fashion. Some of them are pay as you go. And a lot of them provide an opportunity for socialization. They provide the opportunity for some meals to be shared in a dining room, different options like that. They typically do have social outings or recreational activities. So if you are isolated, if you're in the age in place situation and you would benefit from a more social environment, that might be something that you could consider. Then the next step from there would be the supported living option. So those are, again, typically owned and maintained by for-profits and not-for-profits, and they provide safe housing for our senior population, but they provide a minimum of some supports. For instance, they typically provide 3 meals and some snacks every day. They provide what they call light housekeeping once a week. So most places will do laundry for their linens, but there's usually a caveat that if you use your own linens, your own beddings, then you're responsible for your own laundry. Most of them do have laundry facilities available, but you would have to do it yourself, and they're typically they use the card now rather than a coin operated system, but it would be a shared laundry situation. Again, these places are places where you can socialize. They have educational opportunities. They have outings for the residents to go on, things like that. Then, of course, the next step is the long-term care. So as we age and as we progress, if we have some chronic conditions that cause us to have mobility or visual impairment, things like that, where we cannot function safely, and of course cognitive defects are the biggest issues that are putting people in long-term care these days. So those are places where they have access to 24-hour, 7-day-a-week nursing care. Now that doesn't mean, most people tend to get it in their brain that means that their parent or their friend is going to have access one-on-one to specialized nursing. So I want to be very clear. That means that you have access to it. So unless you are in a private pay facility that has a very low ratio of staff to residents, if you're in a publicly funded model, the province typically will set up a formula that they can only have so many residents per so many care team individuals. But you have to understand that if say your mother is needing help toileting at 11 o'clock at night, and the staff are busy with somebody who has maybe had a cardiac episode or had a serious fall, they're going to have to deal with that emergency, and your mother will have to wait to be toileted. So just to be very clear on expectations, because that is one of the biggest obstacles when you have a loved one in care, is leveling expectations. What is it that you can expect? What is it that you can reasonably expect? And what can they reasonably deliver? Now, each of these options do have pros and cons. Obviously, the COVID epidemic back in 2020 really highlighted a lot of the downfall of some of these community environments. Because we were dealing with the epidemic of COVID and everybody was in social isolation, it was an extremely horrific event for our seniors. People in supported living were essentially prisoners in their own home. I'll speak personally. My mother spent 30 days in her studio apartment because they had to be isolated. And during that period of time, meals were delivered in the room, and if somebody had the time, they would get a 15-minute break every 24 hours to go outside and go for a walk. The effects that that has on people cognitively, socially, it's devastating. We had so many seniors that ended up in huge depression. We ended up with people that had cognitive deficits increase. Long-term care. My friend who's in long-term care, they had to be isolated as well. Now, I'm sure that you can imagine how difficult it is to take a dozen residents who all have cognitive deficits, who have no short-term memory, and you're trying to explain to them that you have to stay in your room because we have this pandemic going on. It must have been like herding cats, trying to keep these people understanding and keep them isolated. And then we will never be able to get the appropriate measure of what effect that social isolation had on advancing these cognitive deficits in our loved ones who were in long-term care. So, as I say, everything has its pros and its cons. We do need to provide housing. Most seniors are on a fixed income. They have limited resources. They need to be housed safely. They need to be in a position where they're treated with dignity and respect, but that we're making sure that they're safe. And we need to look at other options. We can't continue to build these high-rise buildings that we're warehousing our seniors, feeding them industrialized food that is sometimes lacking, and wait for the next pandemic to happen and cause them problems. We need to look at housing more supports so that people can age in place. It surely can be done in a financially responsible way that these people can receive the supports they want, and it doesn't cost any more than putting somebody into one of these facilities and paying for the staff and worrying about if we have enough staff and worrying about staff turnover. There's also, what about opportunities for community living? What about setting up homes where you house maybe a dozen people at a time? I know that there are some places in the States that operate on that premise. And then we also have, there was one instance here in Alberta several years ago. This woman had received approval from the government and licensing, and she would rent a home that had 4 bedrooms. It would be a bi-level. She would have 4 residents. Only one could be somebody that was requiring a lot of attention. It was a very nice, close, homey environment for these people. They were able to participate as if they were in their own home. We need to put all these options on the table. So I would welcome your comments on this matter. I would encourage you to speak to your political representatives at all levels. I would encourage you to talk to the owners of these seniors facilities, and let's see what we can do to broaden the dialogue, broaden the exposure, and see what we can do, because we're all getting there too. We're going to need some place that we want to live in as well down the road. So let's take care of that for our loved ones now while we can. Thanks very much. Talk to you next time.